Thank you so much. And now we're joined by Ayodeji Ologun, who is the spokesperson for the Osun Mastermind. Mr. Ayodeji Ologun, thank you so much for joining us this morning to have this conversation about the elections. Now, of course, from your interactions with, good morning, from your interactions with voters and your monitoring of the elections so far, what would you say has been the biggest issue that's influenced voters today to come out and vote?
Well, this morning, I've visited about 3 local governments. That's Olorunda local government, Osogbo local government, and of course, Ekpede local government, which are the surrounding local governments in the Osogbo metropolis. And one thing that is visible is the enthusiasm of the people to come out to vote, unlike the prediction or contrary to the fear or upon the political pundits that the violence that preceded the election might prevent people from coming out on the day of election. I saw something contrary to that in the previous government. I've said this morning, people trooped out en masse to vote their preferred candidate. I've visited the polling unit in Owode 1 of all of the local government. I've been to Ataja 5. I've been to Ataja Ibalaye Street. I've been to Ataja 5 at about 5 a.m. And one thing remains constant. At the time voting is expected to start at 8:30, some of these polling units already had over 100, 200 persons standing, waiting for the commencement of the exercise. And the INEC officials arrived on time. All of these polling units I talked about between the hours of 8:30 and 9, virtually all the polling units around the areas, around these 3 local governments, had agents of INEC or staffs of INEC and the ad hoc staffs promptly on ground. And they follow, another thing is they followed the rule. I waited to see if they were going to play by the rules and the letters. And of course, the ad hoc staff that stayed with INEC did exactly that by arriving at the polling unit, addressing the voters, telling them what the pattern of voting would be, telling them exactly what they expected to do, showing them the ballot box empty and where to be placed, showing them where the voting will take place, showing them how to vote the voting sheets and how to have it dropped in the voting voters ballot. And of course, that's really followed by assessment of the party agents who were then allowed to vote before we now move on to voting by people that are with disability, and of course, followed by the agents before they now throw the ballot open to every other person. So one thing is constant. The people of Osun State seems to have resolved to do the needful in ensuring that they participate in the process and elect the leader of their choice that will lead Osun State going forward.
Ayodeji, thank you very much. Ayodeji, I'm going to be having a conversation between you, myself, Queen, and also Lateef, who we have in the studio here. Lateef has been giving us some very interesting details about the elections, the numbers from before, the history, and how it might influence the eventuality of today. My biggest concern, Ayodeji, is around the Osun West issue. The fact that 3 of the big players are actually all from Osun West, Oyedekun-Alli, Najim, and also Adeleke himself. And I was asking Abdulateef earlier what he thinks might happen with these 3 big contenders vying for the votes from this same area where they're all from. It's quite different from what we saw in the past election with Adeleke winning. This time he's got both other contenders are from the same part of the state. So what's your take on how the votes might be shared across these 3 candidates?
The 2 local governments that are likely to determine the eventual winner of this election is primarily Osogbo local government and Olorunda local government, who are not only central, who are not only from the central senatorial districts, but have the largest number of polling units and have the highest number of voters. Just like you rightly said, the 3 major contenders are from the West Senatorial District. The incumbent is from Ede, and of course, the candidate of the APC is from Ikire. And then we have the candidate of the ADC from Ejigbo, which means that substantially the votes of the West would be shared among these 3. Unlike the last election, where the Adeleke had an advantage of being the only major candidate from the West. This time around, the 3 major contenders are from the West, which means the votes of the West will be shared substantially among these 3. Interestingly also, the 2 major contenders, that is the APC and the Accord Party, the 2 of them have their deputies from the East Senatorial District, particularly Ife. The incumbent deputy governor of the state is from Ife, and the deputy governorship candidate of the APC is also from Ife, which means that substantially the vote of Ife North, Ife Central, and Ife East would be contended and shared substantially between these two major contenders. Don't also forget that two other major factors that will influence the votes from the East is the influence of the former secretary of the APC, that is Iyola Omishore, who seems to not have his own weight in the APC. While he has not left the APC, while we saw him on the stage campaigning for the APC at the last, the last campaign, a lot of his foot soldiers, including commissioners that he made under the administration of Oyetola, have all defected to support their court party candidate. So we will see how his influence will either be withered than or will play out in today's election. We also must not forget that the incumbent rep member from that zone is also of the APC division. The senator from that zone, the East Senatorial District, is also of the APC divide. So which means if these votes from the East and the West will be substantially shared between the two major parties, that is the Accord Party and the APC, because of their candidacy, who gets the majority of the votes from the Central Senatorial Districts, particularly that of Osogbo and Olorunda, might carry the day, because those two local governments, the vote that will come out from there and to whose favor will be a very major determinant in who wins today's election.
All right, thank you very much, Ayodeji. Ayodeji and Lateef, please, I'll have you guys on hold because we're going to go to our correspondent, Mercy Babajide, who is also in Osun State, to give us details of her location. Mercy, good morning. Thank you very much. Please tell us where you are right now and what the situation is. How's voting going on? Have you noticed any irregularities or anything encouraging? Do tell.
Well, we've moved over to the voting at Abogunle Compound Unit 9 Ward 2 of Ede North. And like I said earlier on, we had 1,082 registered people that are expected to vote across this polling unit. But then the major problem right now is the beaver is not working. Standing by my left is someone that has tried countless times, and yes, she has gone through all others, but then when it got to the beavers, it is not working. They equally complained, as you can see on the screen, that this particular beaver is trying to capture someone, and we've been on this person for over 10 minutes right now. Over 10 minutes, and it is not capturing the face for some reason. Mommy, yes, Meti try to vote. Kilo shele. Okay, so you can go. Okay, she's about to try again, and hopefully it works this time. So the other lady pushed a scarf to the back, and then the beaver was able to capture her face. But right now we're moving back to this woman again, and hopefully it works this time around. But then the crowd is agitated. They're quite agitated a bit because she equally said she's been here since 6 a.m. this morning, of course, for her to be able to vote. But then Governor Ademola Adeleke had voted. He was, of course, the first person to vote this morning. Let's take some other persons. Ekaroma. Ẹ vote ma. Mo ti vote. Báwo ni ó ṣe ṣe ó rọrùn ni àbí kò rọrùn àti gbogbo ó rọrùn púpọ̀ láti ṣe. Okay, ma dúpẹ́ ma. Okay, so she said it was easy for her to do. Let's take one other person. Ẹ káàárọ̀ sir. Ẹ káàárọ̀. Ṣé ti dìbò? Ó kù díẹ̀ ká dìbò, kò tí ì kàn wá. Okay, báwo. Kíni yẹn lò, kíni bíbá yẹn wọ́n ní kò ṣiṣẹ́ dáadáa. Okay. So on slow. They even kò get ẹlòmíì. So even torí ẹ̀ náà fi ní kán jáde sí iwájú ìta díẹ̀ so that kíkiní yẹn lè clear. So náà là ń ṣe lọ́wọ́. Okay. Lọ tó ń sìn. Okay sir. Ìdìbò bẹ́ẹ̀ kíní yẹn slow. Kíní yẹn ò yá bó ṣe yẹ kó yá. Àwọn èèyàn dẹ̀ pọ̀ tán fẹ́ dìbò. So kí Ọlọ́run ṣàánú wa kíkiní yẹn tí kíní yẹn bá ṣe ń sìn gbogbo àwọn èèyàn ó láǹfààní ní òjì tí ìjẹ́ káwa yẹn ó tò. Because à ń dúró pé kí ibẹ̀ yẹn ó fà díẹ̀ kó tó ipá wa náà tó ẹ̀yin náà ìwé bí láyẹn ṣe gùn tó. So kíní yẹn ò dẹ̀ yára bẹ́ẹ̀. So tọ́ ẹ pàtó ṣe bá wà tán bá lè bá wa ṣe ìbádùn mọ́ wa púpọ̀. Adúpẹ́ sir. Kí ló kọ́ yín sir? Orúkọ mi ni Ọlábóyè Abdulrasheed. Adúpẹ́ sir. Well, we are going to move over to Grandma here, who is going to tell us, because there's quite a long queue at the back. And what the man has said there, I will translate in English, where he has said beavers is very slow, and it's been difficult to, of course, capture people's face, even though several persons have moved their scarves to the back and all of that. Yes, ma. Kí lorúkọ yín mọ́mì? Ahmed Hafsat Ọlábísí. Okay, báwo lẹ ṣe rí ètò ìdìbò yìí sí láàárọ̀ yìí? Ó ń dùn gan-an ni. Ọlọ́run ó sì jẹ́ ó dùn dáadáa kalẹ̀. Yóò dùn. Ẹ̀yìn ìbò iná ó tún dùn.
ẹ̀yìn òní ó tó máa dùn lọ ni. Ó dùn, ó wà òkè, ó wà dáadáa, ó dájé tá à ń tí ń dì lọ, Ọlọ́run sì jẹ́ ọ̀dà. Iná ìyá Yorùbá, iná ìyá.
Ma?
Mo ní sọ ọ̀gbọ́ Yorùbá ọ̀gbọ́ tí mo.
Ọgbọ́ Yorùbá.
Okay.
Adúpẹ́ ma. Okay. Well, when Governor Adeleke came, he spoke about, of course, the voters ensuring that they vote. But then let's take a look at how long the queue is. That's a queue for one of the polling units at the other side. And then this other side, you can even see people no longer queuing, but now sitting down on the floor. People are sitting down on the floor because the queue is long and people have been here as far back as 6 a.m. this morning, and some are even sitting right now. The queue is quite long. It runs all the way down to into the streets. And people are willing to, of course, exercise their voting rights here at Eden North, the governor's polling unit. Okay, looks like we have another polling unit at the other side. We will be visiting that area to see if there is any problem or if things are running smoothly, because there are network issues at the other side there. I think my camera guy should just see the crowd from my left. He would be able to take visuals of people to my left and see how much people we have here now at this polling unit 7 in Eden North. Okay, now let's move over to the other polling units. It looks like we have 3 polling units and they have formed a circle. 1 polling unit facing each other, and this is just right behind our polling unit, still in Eden North of Osun State. Now let's take what people are going to say here. Daddy. Yes, sir. Kilo orúkọ bí, sir?
Abogunde.
Sagba Abogunde. Okay, báwo ni ètò ìdìbò ṣe ń lọ níbí?
Kò sí wàhálà.
Kò sí wàhálà, ṣé ti dìbò?
A ti dìbò.
Okay, adúpẹ́ gan ni, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, now, yes, sir, adúpẹ́, sir. Now let's take more reviews. It looks like everything seems in order right in this polling unit. I'm trying to figure out the polling unit. Okay, this is polling unit 10, still in Eden North, just right behind the governor's polling unit. Let's take interviews of some persons. Good morning. Okay, please, can you face the camera?
Yes, ma'am.
How long have you been here?
Like 30 minutes.
Like 30 minutes. How easy is it for you to vote?
It's very easy. Yeah, it's very easy. Any problem?
There's no problem.
There's no problem.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Yeah. Good morning, sir.
Morning, sister.
How long have you been here for?
I'm here since during the former governor, Ayodeji Ologun.
No, I'm saying how long have you been on this queue for?
Don't tell.
How many hours or minutes?
Don't reach just 35 minutes.
Okay, why do you think you've been here for this long?
I must wait for queue. I wait for the queue.
Okay. So the queue is quite long?
Yes.
Okay. All right, you've heard from him. He said the queue is long and that is why he's not been able to exercise his voting rights. But then all seems perfectly normal at this side. This is polling unit 10 of Eden North, and of course in Eden, right behind the governor's polling unit. Right behind the governor's polling unit, rather.
Well, Messi, thank you so much for that. But before you go, let's talk about people with disabilities. Have you been able to see anyone with disabilities at this polling unit, and how has it been for them to assess voting this morning?
People have actually voted this morning. I said earlier on that the governor was the first person to vote at the other polling units because, of course, they said they wanted to start voting by 8:30, and the governor came by 8:30 on the dot, of course, to vote. And equally, he was the first person to vote. But then right after the governor left, there was issues with, they had issues rather with the beavers that I showed earlier on. I'm hoping that before we get back there, they would have resolved all the issues they have with the beavers, but mostly it was for women who tied scarves on their head who couldn't vote.
All right, thank you, Mercy. Mercy, we'll come back to you with more questions from Ede there. Do continue with the observation. We'll be back with you. Let's take a short break. We still have Abdul Latif and Ayodeji here with us. We'll continue with that analysis when we get back. Welcome back. Osun State decides today, and here for the ballot Saturday morning, we are monitoring with our correspondents all across Osun State how the elections are going. Thank you very much for joining us. We also have still with us our in-house analysts. That's Abdul Latif here. Abdul Latif has been giving us details about the history and implications of history when it comes to today's elections. Ayodeji also is on board, and he's giving us details about what's happening today with the details that we're getting and the stats. Gentlemen, thank you for remaining with us. Now, Ayodeji, before we went on a break and before we had our correspondents there, I was talking with Abdul Latif and I was asking a very detailed question regarding Osun North. Now, I hear what you said regarding Osogbo and Olorunda. As one of the largest collectives of voters, and how that might also matter when it comes to the eventuality of today's votes. But Osun West is a very dynamic and interesting detail to add to the elections here, because we have three major candidates, the three top candidates coming from that one place. And I'm wondering who exactly might hold sway, noting that since all three of them are from these parts, they would have to share the votes. So, Abdul Latif, I'm going to turn to you again here inside of the studio. We were talking earlier about how this could go, how it could split, and who has or who stands the greater ground. One of our guests from earlier thought that Adeleke might not have that big presence across the West anymore. But you and I were talking about how these votes might be split across these three, Oyebamiji, Adeleke, and Nojim, who seems to be a very interesting entry here. Because while he might not get the biggest share, he can influence the votes anyway. If you had a two-horse race between Oyebamiji and Adeleke, if you were to split it 50-50, well, that's fair. But if you had a third player, you have to split it three ways. Now, if he's not a big contender, he will be dragging votes from either of these two, whether it's Oyebamiji or whether it's Adeleke. Now that that's the case, whose votes do you think he might be stealing, and to the advantage of which other candidates?
Okay, let me do two things quickly. What we have now is the governor seeking a re-election, right? We also have a sitting president seeking a re-election. If we were to go back to the days of Obasanjo, he was in the PDP and the Southwest was in the AD. And because he was seeking re-election...
Who now?
Obasanjo. He was seeking re-election. He did everything within his political capabilities, federal might and all that, to ensure that he was able to turn the fortunes of Osun from AD to PDP. I get me. So in any case, we are having another re-election for the president and re-election for the governor. Now, how these two things may play out will be in the desperation, the political hunger, the willingness to ensure that you snatch as much votes as possible, you know, in support of either the president or his party, you know, to ensure that it is a leverage for the, you know, for the president when it comes to 2027 election. This is important because beyond the, you know, the wishes of, you know, the masses, the political dynamics ensures that politicians will look at things like there will be a groundswell of anti-incumbency alliance. So people who want to align with the federal government will try as much as they can, because of their own personal political interest, to support a candidate that can help them align with the presidency. That may work against Governor Adeleke. However, Governor Adeleke's name, his family, his political, you know, structure is well rooted in the governance of Osun State. And because of that, he also expects to get a lot of support. So while we understand that this race is between the, you know, the APC and Accord, ADC, for example, may be the decider in the case, in the sense that even if he secures a little, you know, a little around 100 or 120,000 votes, you may not be able to declare a winner, and then there'll be a runoff. So APC and Accord will do everything possible to not be in that position, because if there's going to be a runoff, it is very unlikely that the ADC will support the APC, because the ADC wants APC out of the presidency. So the best will be for them to support anything or anyone that would give them a better leverage.
That's the ADC now.
That's the ADC.
But unfortunately, the ADC itself seems to be like an APC decider. Because if you factor in the Aregbesola influence, you get a case where they're actually coming from an APC structure. The Accord Party with Adeleke itself, while you don't have PDP on the ballot, it seems to be a mechanism from the PDP. These influences and dynamics are crazy.
Yeah, and that is why for Osun State, unlike other states, it is always a switch between parties. It's not like, okay, you expect APC to win from head to toe every election. It can switch either ways. You know, you're in AD today, and then the next time it's PDP today, the next time is, you know, so, yeah.
Okay, but one final thing. Do you think that the ADC, having that influence from previous APC, is that an implication for or against the votes that it might be able to gather from either the Accord Party or the current APC?
I didn't get that. Come again.
Now, the ADC, like I called it before, is an APC decider, whether you like it or not. It also, however, has influence from Aregbesola. I'm wondering whether that structure follows it, whether that influence still follows it into the ADC.
Well,
just like I'm wondering whether the whether PDP influence follows through into the Accord Party.
Yes, definitely there's an influence of PDP in Accord Party, but Accord Party had to emerge. The governor had to leave PDP for Accord because the PDP was in disarray. So a lot of members of the PDP are now in Accord, right? So it will affect his fortunes, but maybe not as much as, you know, it would have been if he were to be in the PDP. And again, not everybody in the PDP just moved or supported the Accord person, Governor Adeleke. Some of them have moved to APC, some of them have moved to ADC. So it's a mix. And so sometimes the same people who have campaigned against a candidate in one party have moved to another party campaigning against another candidate. So people are seeing it's almost the same mobilizers, the same faces. Not surprising anyway that former Governor Oyetola, who is now a minister, is actively, is active in the Osun politics because he needs to make a statement for his own personal political survival. So it's a contest between him and Adeleke earlier on. Adeleke lost to him by a narrow margin of 482 votes or thereabout, and then Adeleke came back to defeat him with about 28,000 votes. So now he wants to stake back his political relevance in the state. So it's an all-out fight.
Wow.
Well, I know that you have a lot of data and slides for us, Lateef, but before I go into that with you, we still have Ayodeji with us. Ayodeji, we did not forget you. Apologies for keeping you for so long. But now, talking about this election, Governor Adeleke had mentioned that, the voters should give him another 4 years to complete what he has done. Now, we've talked about road, education, healthcare, jobs, local government administration, state finances. Where would you say he has performed strongly, and where would you say his biggest vulnerability?
Well, for those of us who lived here, and I've lived there for over 40 years of my life, I understand the dynamics of the politics. One thing anybody cannot take away from the Demola Adeleke in almost 4 years that he has been in office, which is his area of strength, is infrastructure. There's no doubt to the fact. Nobody can argue, successfully so, that Demola Adeleke has not done well in building infrastructure. I mean, roads, bridges, as the case may be. Most importantly, roads and bridges. He has done well. But his major area, where he has weakness and which might count against him in this election, is the issue of one-sidedness of the project. A lot of accusation lays at the door of the governor that he has almost denied the state. Most political appointees, top government functionaries, the directors and the rest of them, are mostly Ede-born technocrats who are permanent secretaries and what have you. And even when it comes to shifting political appointments, people from Ede extraction seem to enjoy more prominent political portfolios more than any other people of the state. Even the infrastructure we're talking about, there is this accusation, of course, which is rightly so, because I know that most of the projects are skewed in favor of Ede beyond and above every other major cities in the state. About 8 roads leads to Ede that I know of. Even some of them, about 2 or 3 of them that have never been motorable in the last 10, 15 years. All those roads have been dualized, leading in and out of Ede. So if there's anything that will stand against Governor Adeleke in this election, it might be, just my opinion, it might be a revote by other people or other extraction in the state who might want to make a statement that too much is being done for Ede at their detriment. Another issue that might be an issue of concern or that might stand against Governor Adeleke in this administration, in this election, is the issue of accountability. While people of the state applaud him for the projects that he has done, the roads, the bridges, the question has always been that the processes of awarding those contracts are shrouded in secrecy. There's a number of these projects that you cannot even say this is the contractor to whom it was awarded. This is the amount of money at which it was awarded, or this is the process of award that it took, how competitive it was before such projects are awarded. So these are the issues, this area of strength and issues that might stand against him in the election that is ongoing to elect who governs Osun State going forward.
Well, while we're talking about all of this, you've mentioned all of this in terms of Governor Adeleke. Now, what would you say Bola Oyebamiji is offering that is different from what Adeleke has done so far?
Just like you asked, I will talk about the strengths and the advantage and the disadvantage that Bola Oyebamiji also has in this election. One major thing that is likely going to stand against Bola Oyebamiji in this election is the barrage of the people that he has worked with. Don't forget that Bola Oyebamiji was Commissioner of Finance under Rauf Aregbesola, where we had the issue of half salary and what have you, and there has been an allegation that he was keenly involved in how the issue of half salary was brought about under the Rauf Aregbesola administration. He also translated from that administration to become Commissioner of Finance under the former governor, Oyetola, and the accusation has been that that government was stingy when it comes to release of funds, when it comes to apportioning finances to projects awarded and what have you. So all of this barrage at what Oyebamiji is carrying into this election is carrying the barrage of disaffection against the two principals that he has worked with. But if there's anything that would stand as an advantage for Bola Oyebamiji in this election, it is his exposure. He's seen as a better candidate when it comes to being exposed. He's seen as a better candidate when it comes to academic qualification or educational qualification, as the case may be. He's also seen as someone who is unbiased when it comes to religion. So these are his strengths and his weaknesses, or what stands as an advantage to him and what stands as a disadvantage for him in this election. And there's anything that he has contested with, which I have issues with anyway, is this issue of looking at the weakness of Adeleke when it comes to his background educationally, and of course what has been tagged that is dancing skill, the lack of finance, in quotes now, in governance. These are the weaknesses that Oyebamiji is counting on, upon which he can pay to the people that he will going to do better. And we hope that all of these strengths and weaknesses will be the determinant factor in how who gets elected to govern the state going forward among these two major contenders.
Well, so lastly, before you go, of course, when it comes to Osun election, we're always you ending up in court, an argument as to who's supposed to win, and then, you know, the amount of voters. Now, talking about all the events that has happened prior to now, the violence and, you know, the amount of security that had to come to Osun State for this election, do you think that the outcome of this election will lead us to court again?
Of course, most likely. Since the days of Baba Akande, there has been no election in Osun State that has not ended up at the tribunal and subsequently at the appeal court. And I don't see this as anything that will be different. One of the things that I foresee in this election is that the margin of victory in this election might not be so wide. Don't forget, even the last election where Adeleke won, he won by just about 4,000 votes or thereabout. If care is not taken, the margin of victory in this particular election might be lower than that. So the margin of victory will be very close. And if that be the case, you can be sure that whatever party loses will always come up with this allegation of, oh, it was rigged, oh, some ballots were not counted, oh, some figures are missing. So I don't see this election ending at the ballot. I foresee that this election will still take us to the tribunal and subsequently to other layers of court proceedings.
Well, Ayodeji Ologun, thank you so much for joining and having this conversation with us. Of course, the elections is still ongoing, and of course, we'll follow up with our correspondents to see how it goes. And by tomorrow, we'll know who wins. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Ayodeji.